What's up, guys? I'm Chad Barnes, and welcome to the channel. Here, it's all about real car talk, from simple fixes to smart driving tips and keeping your ride in top shape. If that sounds good to you, go ahead and give the video a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button and make sure you watch all the way through. There's a lot of good stuff coming. Let's get to it.
The debut of the new Fiat 500 took place in 2007, and in 2008 the compact appeared in our country. However, sales stalled at once. Even the first batch of 500 cars took several years to sell. The volumes were always tiny, at best 150 copies per year. And it has always been so, even in 2008, when the price list started from 600,000 rubles, so it is impossible to say that currency. Fluctuations have killed sales. Fiat has always cost so much that it was possible to buy a real car for this money, but nobody cared about it. Moreover, the official Fiat website exists to this day, offering to buy a 500 for 1.1 million rubles. Needless to say, this has long implied a full prepayment and waiting for the order, and the price is still adult, so most buyers prefer to save twice and buy a used car. How difficult is it to choose it? Despite the toy size and appearance, Fiat is quite well prepared for real life. In particular, galvanization of the body allows the cars to look quite decent even in Russia. The status of a favorite toy does not save completely. The cars are still too cheap for absolutely all owners to invest in them. However, there are no frankly rusty cars on sale anyway. However, it is often enough to look closely to find typical defects in the paintwork. Sills without plastic linings give up under the pressure of sand and stones from under the wheels, as well as mercilessly crumpled by jacks and elevator supports. Usually it does not come to rot, but repair still often involves replacement of a part of the sill. In addition, the loss of plugs here can lead to corrosion of the inner sill cavity. The edges of the wheel arches flake and corrode in the area of rolling, and the inner cavities of the arches should also be inspected with vigor. Joints of fenders with bumpers are also in the risk group. The peeled corners are protected by galvanizing for some time, but in time it also gives up. Outer edges of long doors are knocked about the landscape and other cars, and the door aperture itself, especially in the lower rear part, also fades with time. The trunk lid, though tiny, has classic weak points. Corrosion creeps out from under the chrome molding, and even appears in the license plate niche. Of course, the typical age problems of the 500 are inherent to the full extent. The chrome is getting cloudy and faded, the windshield frame collects chips, as well as the hood, although most of the front part is occupied by the bumper. The underbody is worth inspecting for anti-corrosion and the absence of major damage, and the floors in the cabin to check for dryness. Even cars with a sunroof can have problems with tightness, and there are also convertibles with a sliding soft top. From the point of view of a body, however, there is also pleasant news. It is that US Fiat 500 remains exclusive, and in the world more than 1.5 million of such cars have been sold, so that purchase of body parts, including non-original ones, is not a problem. For example, a bumper can be bought for 5 to 10,000, while the price tag of the original can be 6 figures. The front fender costs 10,000 even for the firm, and the hood for the same money can be bought non-original. Halogen headlight will cost 12,000 for a part in a branded box and 5 to 8,000 for an analog, but xenon is 50,000 for Magneti. Marelli or a little less for more rare variants. Windshield can be bought for 6 to 10,000 against 30,000 for the original. In general, it is difficult to go bankrupt here, though it is not easy to save a lot, because the nearest dismantling of the model is only in Poland. The platform of the stylish little Fiat is from the more utilitarian Panda, which means simple suspension schemes, McPherson in front, and a torsion beam at the rear. Well, the popularity and cheapness of the platform means low cost of parts, and a wide range of non-original components. Spare parts are, for the most part, very affordable. For example, it is not necessary to grieve that the front ball bearing is changed in assembly with the lever, because the L-shaped lever can be bought for 2 to 10,000 rubles at the price of the original in 15,000. Branded shock absorbers cost 5 to 6,000 for a piece and from 2,500 for an analog. From expendables of a rear suspension, it is possible to remember only bushings of a beam which cost 1,500–2,000 for an original detail. Well and trifles are pennies at all. Stabilizer struts, for example, cost from 300 rubles. Brakes also surprise with the affordability of the content. Front discs start from 1,000 rubles at the cost of the original of 5 to 6,000. Rear non-ventilated brake discs can be bought literally for 500 to 600 rubles per piece, and if you want to pay 3,000 for the original part. Drums, which are equipped with cars with a basic engine, by the way, cost exactly the same money. Thus, at inspection it remains only to find out the condition of the braking system and to estimate the volume of investments. If the owner saved on such cheap brakes, perhaps, the investments will be more than it seems. Steering of a small Fiat has electric power steering, and here problems are possible mainly with the mechanism of the booster. If necessary, the rack can be bought restored for a pittance, 7 to 15,000, but the amplifier in an assembly will be many times more expensive. However, the problems are not always connected with the motor. Often the steering wheel position sensor, which costs 8 to 10,000, throws up surprises. However, real surprises in Fiat 500 are connected with transmission, namely with robotized gearbox cell speed. If any Alfa Romeo Brera, a robot with such a name, is not the most unfortunate purchase, but here the unit turned out to be not only capricious, but also poorly adapted to the Russian climate. There is nothing to say about sluggish work of the transmission with one clutch. It is a typical feature of such transmissions. But sensitivity to temperature and humidity fluctuations, specific oil with high hygroscopicity, requiring replacement almost twice a year, capricious hydraulic accumulator and rather fragile oil pump are tangible risk factors. Add to this the high cost of these units and multiply it by the rarity of craftsmen and services that know how to work well with these boxes, and you get the perfect recipe for the scenario bought. It doesn't go, nothing is clear, paid 100,000 for repairs. Still doesn't go, Italian cars are junk, I'm selling. Against this background, manual transmissions, 5-speed with the 1.2 engine and 6-speed with more powerful ones, seem just samples of simplicity and reliability. There are almost no complaints about them. The clutch set costs 5 to 10,000 rubles, and even the original flywheel for 30,000. Does not look like such a big problem, especially if you can buy it on the dismantling abroad. So if you buy 500 to drive, and drive with interest, mechanics will be the best choice. One line should be mentioned 6-speed hydromechanical automatic Aisin AW60T, with which Fiat was collected for the U.S. market in Mexico. In our country such overseas cars are very rare, but if you want to get 2 pedals, an automatic will be a much better choice than a robot. Fiat 500 had quite a lot of motors during its production, but we are actually interested in those 2, with which it was mainly offered in our country. These are gasoline atmospheric engines of not old family fire. The basic one has 2 liters of volume and 69 forces of power, and the older one, 105 horsepower at 4 liters of working volume. About the age of motors clearly speaks their design. 2 liter in general 8-valve, with 1 camshaft in the cylinder head, and 4 liter, though it appeared in the 2000s, not in the early 90s, has not gone far from a fellow. Both units are simple, with belt-driven timing and distributed injection, so they are simple and inexpensive in maintenance. The resource is also quite decent. With good care you can count on 200 to 250,000 kilometers, or even more. One-of-a-kind 2-cylinder turbo motor with the volume of 0.9 liters already belongs to the multi-air family, and is potentially more troublesome. Dynamics of a small car with it becomes even more interesting, but it is necessary to prepare and to service the supercharger system, and to failures of the system of adjustment of phases and height of lifting of valves multi-air, and to replacement of chain timing, and so on. And, accordingly, in order not to get into all this immediately after purchase, it is worth to diagnose the car with such motor especially carefully. And now, having found out that Fiat 500 is not only beautiful, but also not so terrible in content, it is possible to make a portrait of an optimum copy. Those who are ready to spend $1 million and more on a toy cannot understand in subtleties of Italian power units at all and buy. Electric version of Fiat 500, in addition restyled and at the age of 2 to 4 years, about like this, and there are a lot of proposals. For electric, out of 49 Fiat 500, sold on Avito at the time of writing the material, there were 22 such, that is, a little less than half. Well, those who want traditional technical values in a bright shell can make a choice depending on the available budget. For a bath in good condition it is also necessary to prepare about 1 million rubles, but ordinary cars, as we already know, are more accessible. Here the logical choice would be a well-groomed and well-equipped hatchback with a 1.4-liter 100 horsepower engine and a manual. About like this, a car aged 5 to 7 years and with a mileage of about 100,000 kilometers will not throw up surprises robot and, in general, should not be too expensive for a small toy. Although it is enough to look at the Fiat 500 to spare almost no money on it, isn't it? In conclusion, the Fiat 500, priced at 600,000 rubles, presents a mixed bag of features and performance. While it offers a charming design and a compact size ideal for urban driving, the lack of surprises in terms of technology and driving experience may leave some buyers wanting more. Ultimately, whether this car is worth the investment depends on your personal preferences and priorities. If you value style and city maneuverability over advanced features, the Fiat 500 could be a delightful choice. However, if you're seeking a vehicle with more versatility and innovation, it might be worth exploring other options. Thank you for watching, and we hope this analysis helps you make an informed decision.